Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. I'm your host, Jordan Samuel Fleming. And on this awesome episode, I welcome Tony Javier from 10X TV. Tony's not only got a fascinatingly long and involved history in real estate, we go a bit into that, but he's also really he's cottoned on to an amazing inbound source. And I know from working with customers over the years that inbound is the hardest type of leads for them to get. Most people get started, they do cold calling, they do leafleting, they do door drops, all of that. But inbound is kind of the holy grail in my views, because inbound, people have come to you. They're usually pretty qualified. And in this, Tony really takes us through how TV is a surprisingly low cost and affordable way of getting unbelievably powerful inbound leads. I was really amazed at just how easy it is for people to do. And just the type of qualification rates you get, and the fringe benefits of being able to have your profile known, the PR benefits of being visible in your local community. All those little bits extra means that the money you spend on the ads and television goes even further beyond just getting amazing leads, which it seems like that does as well. So this is a fantastic episode for those of you who are trying to figure out how to add more inbound leads to your markets, how to kind of maybe boost up the other lead sources and get more credibility going in your markets. Tony really takes you through how it works, why it works, and the process they do. Definitely recommend you hit up Tony. Again, it's 10X TV, and all the links will be in the show notes. Hit up Tony, hit up his team, and check out how television can work in your market. But for now, let's hit directly to the show. All right, and I'm live here with Tony Javier. Tony, thank you so much for coming on. Give everybody a little bit of a background on yourself.
Yeah, so I've been investing in real estate for 24 years now. I bought the no down payment system by Carlton Sheets. Are you familiar with that, Jordan? You remember that back in the day?
That's almost like when I talk to people about Bell South. And it sort of immediately dates you.
Or like the phone book, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, totally. So I bought that info product on TV, and when it came in the mail, it was CDs and they had just got on the CDs. Literally, like a year or two before, it went from tapes to CDs. That tells you how long ago it was. And the cool thing was, it was a straightforward program. There wasn't a lot of fluff to it. Not saying that there's, all of them do these days, but it was literally like, here's how you raise money. Here's how you do rent to own. Here's how you network. Here's how you buy properties. Here's how you go in the newspaper and find deals. And that's actually how I found my first deal. I went in the newspaper, did exactly what he said, just kept calling. And then finally I found someone who had a fixer-upper and bought that property. And that agent actually talked me into getting my real estate license. So she was kind of my first mentor and got me into the sales business, and I was able to sell real estate while waiting tables and going to college for 2 years before I could quit my job and go full time.
Wow,
That's how I got into the business.
That's a hell of a story. And also, you took me back 100% to the first time I ever did like a correspondence language course when I was pretty young. It came in a big kind of plastic thing with the tapes in it, like you sort of had these sheaths of tapes that you had to put them in, and on your desk or your bookshelf, it was this big sort of thing of that everything came in. And now you click a button and everything's downloaded to your computer, and nobody have it in.
The day you used to have to fill out a form and send it in to get what you wanted to get back to you. I mean, imagine how long that took compared to what it takes now.
Our kids will never understand the deferred enjoyment of sending away for something and then having, like, my daughter's getting a new phone today and it's not available till tomorrow. And for her, it's like, how is this possible? And I'm like, you got to understand, it used to be worse.
Yeah.
Well, so I mean, I'd love to have you on sometime to talk more about the real estate business, but I'm fascinated by your next project or the project that you sort of pivoted on the back of real estate, which is the 10X TV program. Before we get into the specifics, can you how did you get started into that?
Yeah, so let me finish the story about my kind of career. So I ended up was able to drop out of school and quit my job waiting tables to go full time into real estate. And so I started burring properties. I was actually I don't know anybody who was burring properties before I was. Literally in 2002 is when I started burring properties before it actually became a term. And I was raising money, buying properties, refinancing them. And within like a year to 2 years, I'd bought 10 properties and created hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity in properties. And I'm like, man, this is it, right? And so, just kept growing the business. About 2010, I'd grown my team. On paper, everything was looking great, but I ended up just firing my whole team within about a 30-day period. It was one of those times where, you think things are going up and all of a sudden, like things just kind of start not clicking. People are stealing from me. I had 2 of my 5 employees living in my properties. So I had to end up evicting them. And of course, they take me to court because they think that I'm doing something wrong and all these types of things. And so I hit rock bottom mentally and I'm like, gosh, I got to do things smarter. So that was really the shift to me going, okay, I need to hire better people. I need to have better systems and processes in place. And I just need to do things better. And I didn't reach out. We didn't have masterminds back then. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have, actually YouTube, I think, started in like 2007. But we didn't have big podcasts. I mean, there wasn't a lot online to learn. So I ended up flipping it around. I ended up hiring a coach. I ended up going to mastermind groups as they started forming in the early 2010s. And in 2012 is when I found the TV business. And so what happened was I ended up going to a poker game, and I was invited by this guy who I had met at a networking event where I wasn't even supposed to be. And he hits me up. He's like, hey, man, you want to go to this poker game? So I'm like, sure. And so I meet this guy, Cody, and we go down in his basement, and there's 2 guys across down in the basement across the room. And I'm like, I recognize those guys. I'm like, oh, those guys are on TV. They have TV commercials. So I'm an introvert by nature, but I was, the celebrity status thing of like people being on TV. I sit next to him and I start talking to him. And then I asked him, I said, it's TV commercials. I'm like, I see you on TV all the time. He's like, his eyes lit up. He's like, dude, we do so well with TV commercials. He's like, that is all the marketing we do. We have a 6 to 12 month wait list, and we just do millions of dollars. And he has a construction business, millions of dollars of construction every single year. And that's all we do is TV. And he's like, he started telling me the benefits. He's like, people recognize me, and, it's easier to bid jobs and, all this stuff. And I didn't even think about it for my business. He goes, you know what? It might be good for your business. Why don't you check it out? And I'm thinking, I don't know. So anyway, so he gives me the number of his media guy, Drew. So I called Drew up and I'm like, hey, Drew, here's my business. He's a super nice guy. And he's like, give me until the end of the week. I'm going to go to the stations. I'm going to negotiate some spots for you. I'll come back. And if you like it, we can get going. So he comes back to me. He's like, $3,000. I can get you hundreds of commercials a month. And I'm like, really? I was like, I figured it'd be at least $10,000 a month. And even for that 10,000, I thought I'd get, maybe 50 spots or something like that, or 100 spots. So I write the scripts. We shoot the commercial together. Month 1, I make $35,000 on a $3,000 ad spend, and I'm off and running. So again, this is 2012. This is 13 years ago. And fast forward 13 years, and it's still my number 1 lead source. It has been by far the most consistent lead source. And then it's just got a ton of benefits. It gives you credibility. It, people, when they call you, they typically only call you because you're hitting them at that right time. It's easier to negotiate deals. There's just so many different benefits of TV that, eventually we're like, man, we are crushing it with TV. And someone kept pushing me to show other real estate investors what we were doing. And so I went to my media guy, Drew, and I say, Drew, let's partner up on this. we've been doing this for many, many years. We refined our schedules to do really well. I've tested different scripts. Why don't we launch this out to the public? And so I ended up calling up 10 investors that I knew. 8 of them said yes. And we launched it in their markets, and they got similar results that I did, where month 1, they were doing deals and making money. And so that's how 10X TV was born. And so that's kind of my baby right now, is just helping other real estate investors do what I did. And that's find a lead channel that not many other people are doing, and just stick out from the competition. Because as much as I do, marketing methods, they're so tough these days. So many people are coming into markets from out of state, and then even the ones that are in state or in the market are learning all of the other marketing channels that people are doing, and it's just become super competitive. So that's what I spend most of my time on now, is showing other investors how to do TV and the power of it.
And I guess with so many channels we have these days, there's so much more noise on all the different channels. And I guess there's probably a bit of a fear that TV is going to be super expensive. Like I think there's probably an inbuilt assumption that I can't afford this as a marketing channel. But I mean, obviously when you started out, that was a while back, and prices change and things develop. Are there kind of, as an entry point, is it still roughly kind of something, what point in your investment career could you start looking at this as a channel realistically?
Yeah, that's a great point. So there's many reasons that people don't do TV, which is great for people who figure out how to do it. People think it's too expensive, right? And it's not nearly as expensive as you would think. People think you have to be a big business, and there's business owner, like we've actually gotten people on that have just started investing in real estate. We don't always recommend it, but we've gotten people on TV that were like, hey, I'm a new investor. I've started texting and cold calling. It's too much work. It's too much time and energy. We get them on TV. We have one gal in Illinois that's been crushing it for the last 3 years. She just had her first 6-figure month, and she's doing this on the side. She's doing this as a side hustle, and she loves TV because people are calling her, and then she can answer
Inbound
time. She can call them back when she has time. And so to answer your question, if you think about other marketing channels, I mean, most people are spending 15, 20, 25 grand on any marketing channel. Well, TV, it depends on what market you're in.
of course.
But for as little as $7,000 in a lot of markets, you can get a lot of commercials. So that $3,000 that I'd mentioned back in 2012, that's probably, $6,000 or $7,000 equivalent today, right?
But that's still a very reasonable amount of money for, like for the exposure and for the inbound element. And as speaking as someone who owns a phone system, outbound compliance gets tougher and weirder state to state. The absolute gold standard of compliant lead chasing is when you're chasing inbound. And this is a phenomenal inbound source, which is what most people struggle to get. They, cold calling, all of that, outbound effort, cost, compliance, all those things, and success rates are low. Inbound is what you want. And this seems to me like an absolute perfect example of an immediate inbound boost that you wouldn't get from many channels, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's the only channel. I mean, radio, we do radio as well. Mm-hmm. Radio is probably the next closest thing, but there's no channel where you can get people calling you that builds credibility, that helps your SEO, that helps your other forms of marketing, and just does all those things combined, right? And so that's why I'm so bullish on it. And people think, the other thing is people think TV's dead. TV, if you look at the statistics, we have a study from, was it last year? I think it was last year in Florida. They interviewed or polled a bunch of people in Florida, or the study was out of Florida. I can't remember if they polled people in Florida, but it was people that owned a house $150,000 or less, and they had an income of $100,000 or less, and they asked them, how much TV do you watch per day? Can you guess how much TV people are still watching per day?
Uh, 3 hours?
Yep, close. They say 2.5. And you know as much as I do, if they're saying that they watch 2.5 hours of TV, it's probably 4 hours. Right? Because they have it on when they're cooking. They have it on when, kids come over, that type of thing, right? What was the other stat? Oh, they said, what were the things that triggered you to do an online search? And it was like 70 to 80% of people said that TV was the number one thing that triggered them to do an online search. So people think that TV is dead, but people are still watching hours of TV a day. Yes, there's streaming platforms and all those other things that create a little bit more noise. But for real estate investors, it's perfect because we are looking for people under $100,000 in income, $150,000 less houses, and I forgot to say 55 and older was the demographic they interviewed as well.
I was going to say, you know what, when you were talking there, I was thinking to myself, there's such an arrogance that some people have when they think about these things where, like TV is dead, blah, blah, blah. It may be dead. If you're talking about a 25-year-old who's got a good job, your best route to them may be Instagram, or it may be some of these other things because of who they are. But for most real estate investors I know, aside from the divorce elements, you're looking at older, tired landlords, debt, like you're looking at very specific demographics who are much more likely, I would have thought, to watch TV versus a 25-year-old barista who just looks on Instagram all day. It's a different, you got to know who your market is and pick the channels to your market. And I think that you've illustrated that perfectly for what most real estate investors look for.
Yep. And I actually did acquisitions for 3 years, from 2012 to 2015 before I stepped out of that role. And I remember just going into the houses, and there were times my commercial was actually on TV. I mean, there's no better credibility than sitting down with the seller and going, oh, hey, who's that guy on TV, right? And if you investors are still going in houses, think about when you go into a house. I bet you 50% of the time the TV is probably on. They're on. They're just sitting around. They're hanging out. They're cooking. They're cleaning. They're doing whatever. That's just what you did. It was a privilege back in, the 50s, 60s, whenever TV really started exploding to have it. Now it's like everybody has it, but still people value it that are older just because that was their pastime.
Now, I'm sorry to interrupt this amazing conversation, but I wanted to make sure you knew that Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors, connects to the best-in-class real estate investing CRMs. And because, as it's my show and I am co-founder and chairman of Smartphone, I got some great deals for you. Click the link and take advantage of 5,000 minutes free calling with Smartphone, the only phone system built for real estate investors. Click and call. Close more leads. Back to the show. Absolutely. Now, when people, I totally understand. And I think for people listening, that understanding of the demographic you're targeting and why TV works so well, I think is really important to this. In terms of, the markets will change, and depending on where you are, the markets will change. What is the process you guys have for, say I've got a new investor, or not new, I don't mean a new investor, but a new investor to you. I've got someone who's interested in this. What's the process you guys have for sort of understanding will that work? What will work in their local market? What is the expectation? Because it's got to be different. The different markets will be different. So can you tell me a little bit about that process of understanding for a new potential customer who comes to you?
Yeah, well, that's the good thing is a lot of people, if I just said, Jordan, hey, go get on TV, and I just gave you a couple bullet points, like the time and effort it would take for you to know which stations to call, to know what questions to ask to the representative, to know what the good cost of commercials are, and to be able to negotiate that rates would be really hard for you. And so, it's like we're like a buyer's agent for buyers, right? Comparatively. And so, we do this every day. So we know which stations work, we know which shows work, we know which scripts work because we've tested all of this stuff. And so when we go into a market, we look at the market, we see what the population is. That gives us an idea about how many commercials we can get for every $1,000 you spend. So we're able to give that information off the bat. Then we can look at your business and say, okay, based on the scripts that we have, here are the scripts that we think would work well for your business. And then it's plug and play from there. We go to the stations, negotiate the rates, and then set people up in their market to shoot. So that's another thing is like, well, where do I shoot the commercial? We'll set you up in the market to shoot the commercial. You have a teleprompter, you have the scripts. And, some people are intimidated by that. But it's so funny when I talk to people before they go shoot, they're like, God, I'm so nervous. And then afterwards, they're like, what was I nervous about? It was so easy. They're like,
well, you said you're an introvert. You said you were an introvert and you started this.
Yeah. Yeah. And they were like, I was there for 15 minutes and it was like, I literally just read the script and that was it. And our editors are awesome. So like, and here's the other good thing. So there was a guy 3 years ago, he was in the San Diego area. That's where I lived at the time. And he ended up driving down from, I don't know, Orange County, I think it was. And we shot the commercial, and usually it takes 10, 15 minutes. It took like over 30 minutes, probably closer to an hour, because we had to do so many takes because he was so awkward. And I was like, okay, this is going to be fun. So we edited it, and it came out okay, and it absolutely crushed it. And I think it did because you could see the realness of him. It was like,
it was authentic.
It was authentic. And that's how we do our commercials. So it's not we do some B-roll footage, but it's not like super fancy, this and that and some polished, guy coming on in a suit talking about how he can buy your house. It's a real business owner that's talking to the homeowners. And, some people are like, well, I just literally do not want to be on TV. And that's fine too. We can hire, I've done commercials for people. We've hired actors before and, made it look real that way. So yeah, having a real person in the commercial, I think is one of the key elements that makes it go really well.
Well, and particularly, as you pointed out earlier, stacking up that credibility in your market where people recognize you, because they recognize you and they recognize, walking down the street or when you come to see them at the house and they go, oh God, that is the person from the, from the commercial. There's an instant element of recognition, credibility, and comfort. Whereas if it was a model or someone else, you're not going to have that instant kind of that instant rapport and that instant credibility. And so I think that speaks to exactly what you said earlier and why it is such an effective tool to build that credibility in your market. I think that's great.
Yeah. And don't be scared of that. Cause if you don't want to be in the commercial or if like for me, the first 3 years, it was interesting because I'd come into the house sometimes and people were like, oh, it's you? Like, I thought you were going to be sending someone else, they were surprised that I was in their living room, kind of like celebrity. But I haven't been in acquisitions for 10 years now. And our company still gets the credibility. So even though it's not me in there, but I tell people all the time, like, if you can be in the commercial and just stand to be in the commercial, even if you don't want to be, it's going to give you so much personal credibility and branding so that when you're meeting with contractors, when you're meeting with banks, when you're raising money, like it's just another extra layer of credibility. I didn't even mention that. Raising money, oh my gosh. Like any time that I'm connected with someone in Wichita where my commercial's running, if they say, I've seen your commercial, I know what you do, the conversation is exponentially easier than if someone in San Diego has no idea who I am and I have to educate them on what I do, who I am. And we actually had a guy one time see our commercial. He walked into our office. He's like, I want to invest in real estate, but I don't really want to buy houses. Do you guys have, can you guys help me? Absolutely. We have a private money program where you can lend us money and you will pay an interest rate. And so within, I don't know, less than a 12-month period, him and his family had over $1 million invested with us.
All because that credibility and you build that up and it feeds off to those different, it's not even just for the acquisitions, it's that generalized credibility that your TV presence brings.
100%. I'll give you another example. Dean Rogers, a good friend of mine, he was one of the 10 actually that I called. That I was like, hey, I want you to, I want you to try this. And he was hesitant, but he ended up doing it. So he was starting a RIA program. He'd been doing it for, I don't know, probably a year or something like that. He wasn't getting a lot of traction with it. He said once his commercials started airing, the stuff that he started putting out for marketing, people started contacting him more, and his group grew exponentially within that first year. And he said that his second year on TV, he attributes $1 million of extra assignment fees from people who saw the commercial. He would market his RIA group. They would come there, bring him deals, and he would do deals with those people. An extra $1 million just from the credibility. And it may not have been all that, but even if a fraction of that was from the TV credibility, but from what he tells me, he's like, dude, it wasn't, I didn't get any traction before TV, but after TV, it's like, people are like, oh, I want to be around Dean and hang out with him because he's on TV. And, oh, yeah, I'll trust him. I'll invest in his programs and I'll bring him deals and, do deals with him. And we have probably at least 5, if not closer to 10 clients that have RIA groups similar to that, to where they're like, man, when I got on TV, I was really able to grow them. And people just trust me. And when they come to the groups, they're like, man, I see your commercials all the time. And it's such easy branding. It's such easy trust for people.
Well, and that, I go back to whenever I coach or talk to companies. Now, I will say that as a phone system, it's probably weird for me to say that inbound's the best, but I absolutely believe inbound's the best. And, inbound's also the hardest. It's the hardest traction to get most of the time because, outbound's easy. It's expensive sometimes, but it's easy. The channel, it's simple, it's clear, it's straightforward. Inbound, people often feel like it's a bit of a black magic box, and that there's some sort of secret to it. For the types of money that you're talking about, and if you've got even a remote ability to close sales, that kind of money to get inbound leads, and chances are inbound leads are almost invariably decently qualified. They're making the effort to call you. They have a problem, they've got a property, they're making the effort. And in this case, I would imagine that, well, of course, every deal is not going to turn into a contract, of course. But I would gather that your relative success rate for inbound leads for the type of deals you're getting from TV is going to be pretty high. And so in terms of, I always look at, I look at this, and particularly in this podcast, for me, the scaling company is the one I'm focused on the most. The guys who are just starting out, great. There's lots of things you can try. But once you start to try and build a real business and get scale, that's harder. And that requires more. And to me, everything you've said about TV just adds that layer of foundation of inbound, and credibility and visibility in your markets that is just something that is really difficult for most people to capture. And that's where you come in.
Yeah, and I can give you some stats on that as far as qualified leads. So if you're looking at texting, cold calling, I've heard as little as 1 in 20 leads has converted to deals, but typically it's 50 plus is what I've heard. We don't do texting or cold calling, so I can't really say for sure what our numbers would be. For TV, we've seen that 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 is pretty typical, but a lot of our clients say 1 in 5 to 1 in 7 are actually closed deals. There was a guy I interviewed the other day. What were his numbers? I think he said 80% of his leads turned into appointments. And out of those deals, out of every appointment, I think it's 1 in every 2 to 1 in every 3 appointments turns into a deal for him. So the numbers are there. You don't have to go through near as many leads. And I think that TV should be in the middle of every single real estate investing campaign. and there are a lot of other businesses TV would do well for as well. But if you are already doing, even if you're doing texting and cold calling, it can help, because there's, some of our clients have actually, once they warm up the lead, then they'll be like, oh, by the way, this is so and so company. You've probably seen our TV commercial, and that helps with kind of softening them even more. But if you're doing direct mail, if you're doing PPC, if you're doing Facebook, if you're doing even YouTube ads, whatever it is, I feel like TV should be the hub of it, because it just builds all that credibility. So even if you only get, let's say, a 2 to 3 times return, which is on the very low end of what we've seen, it's worth it because it's helping those other lead channels.
Yeah, absolutely. So and if you're scaling your business, the chances are you're going to need 3 or 4 or 5 channels. Like, that's how you build the business. But that credibility that TV, no, I can't think of any other channel that can give someone that quick of credibility, because like, to get credibility that quickly, you can't really do unless you've built up a community over time, and it's quite a process to do that. Whereas TV sort of lends instant, it kind of lends relatively instant credibility. Oh, I saw you on TV. Well, you were on TV. You got on TV. That immediately is there. So is there any, just before I figure out, I will make sure I let everybody know how to get in touch, how they can get started with you. Are there any times where a market, you feel like just markets aren't going to work? Is there anything that anybody should be thinking about in terms of their own market, whether this is appropriate, or can almost anything work, and it's worth trying it out?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there are some markets that just require a massive amount of ad spend, right? And when I say that, I'm talking about like tens of thousands of dollars. Like, for instance, New York City, you have to spend at least 30 grand a month, at least. LA, same thing. But most markets, is a pretty reasonable ad spend between 7 and 10 grand a month. Typically when we see people cancel TV, it's one of a few things. Either their numbers, they didn't handle the leads properly, and their numbers weren't great. Because we've had people be like, man, we've been on for 3 months. We got 90 leads. And we only got one deal. And I'm like, if you got 90 leads, you should have been.
Is that me or is that you?
Yeah, that could be. I don't think that's a lead problem. I think that's a sales problem. The other thing is, sometimes people don't give enough time. Like, month 1, typically you're doing deals. Month 2, more likely. Month 3, almost without a doubt, you're doing deals and you're probably making money. Some people will be on for 30, 60 days and they're like, I ran out of money, or I'm not patient enough, or whatever it is. It can happen. So I always say, commit to at the very least 3 months. I would say 6 is probably a better sample size, just to know how it's working. And then obviously there's other factors that can happen that can make TV not work, or that people cancel, I should say, not that TV doesn't work. But I'm very certain, like, there's some markets where I'm like, dude, this is a small market. You could spend $7,000, and that's probably all you ever need to spend. You're going to get 1,000 commercials a month. And if you suck, you should still do well in this market. And like, we had one guy in a small market in Texas, and he's spending $7 grand a month. His first month, he did like 13 deals, 12 deals. I mean, that's like an anomaly, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Had a great sales team. He had all kinds of different exit strategies, but he just worked those leads like crazy. And so, yeah, so to answer your question, I mean, obviously, some people get on camera and they, for some reason, just don't connect very well. We don't have that happen very often, but we're hitting our demographic. We have great scripts. We have great messaging. You're seeing a ton all over. And by the way, the cost per 1,000, what they call the CPM, if you were to hit 1,000 people with direct mail, right, you're going to spend about $500. With TV, you're going to spend less than $5 most of the time. So you're able to get 100 more touch points for
the reach
cost with TV.
Yeah. And I think, actually, I could, this totally makes sense to me. And I'd imagine some markets you would be drooling at, because you look at it, you just think, oh man, this is candy from baby sort of stuff. You're going to get such visibility. But your point is really valid. And particularly for this podcast, the follow up and how you catch those leads and deal with them is, I think, an Achilles heel for some people, because it's all great. I think you guys could do your job brilliantly, but if they can't handle leads properly, if they don't have the system in place to deal with the leads, to work them properly, to follow up them properly, they don't have the salespeople in place or the process, you are priming with the best fuel, and you're just letting it all go to waste. So I think that's a really important part to remember, that not only do you need to commit to a channel like this, but you need to be prepared to catch and to actually work those leads properly.
100%. It was a couple of years ago. We noticed that it was a lot of people coming to us, and same thing. Like I said, got 90 leads. We only did one deal, all that kind of stuff. So we started buying phone numbers for about a year. We would buy phone numbers for our clients. It was actually probably less than that, because we didn't need that much data. After a while, we're like, okay, we're seeing the same thing over and over. But so we'd buy the phone number. We would we would record the phone calls and listen to them with their permission, of course. And it was atrocious. Even companies, like, there's some people that I'd probably mention their name and you would know their name. And I'm like, they were atrocious. Like, their salespeople would answer like, hello, crying babies in the background, or we had one client that, like, the person would answer the phone and they were a lead manager, and they couldn't answer any questions. They were like the most simple questions, and we're like, oh my gosh, did you not train this person? Like, even if you don't know anything about real estate, you should be able to answer the phone, get the questions, and like ask the right questions, get the answers, and pass it on to the right person. And so going through that whole thing, we're like, oh my gosh, people that you think that they're even if they're doing 100 deals a year, so that doesn't mean anything. That just means that they maybe are getting lucky, or they're just spending enough money to get those deals, but their sales is just not dialed in. So we've actually created a little mastermind group where every couple of weeks, our clients get on a call, and we also have like smaller groups. We put clients in together so they can kind of help each other out, and kind of network and go through sales processes and all that kind of stuff to help them. So we now know that we need to prep them, even if they are a dialed in company, of like, hey, you got to answer the phone, you got to return phone calls, you got to set appointments. Like, there was one guy one time called in, and it was a client again. They wanted to cancel, so we started going to their calls, and we're like, did you listen to this call? Like, someone called in and they're like, hey, we bought this house for like $50,000 30 years ago. Like, if we can get $50,000, we'd even maybe take less than that. And the person said, well, let me do some research and get back with you. And they never called him back. And it's like, come on. So you guys need to listen to your sales calls. And with AI right now, there's no reason not to have calls listened to by AI and graded. So that way, if you're not listening to them, at least you have AI that can go in there and give you some tidbits on what they're doing wrong or what they're potentially doing right.
Well, Tony, I will send you. I just wrote a book all about phone systems, how to use the phone for real estate investors, and you don't need it, but some of your customers may, because the amount of people I see who don't train basic sales skills. They just give them a script and let them go. And, they don't know how to ask questions. They don't have to listen. They don't, all those bits. That's the 100% why I wrote the book. And to your point of AI, at this point now, we've built inbound agents. We connect to answer the call and can do all the qualification. You've now got call scoring, to your point, where every single call can be analyzed and scored, so you can spot the problems. You can give the agents self-guided learning. You've got all the tools now. There's almost no excuse to be bad at this point, in my view. So listen, I want to respect your time. I really want to know just the one final thing, which is, how do people get started? I mean, they're going to be listening to this and thinking about their own markets. How can they reach out to the company? How do they get started? Give us that let's close out on how they can take this action and get those leads flowing.
Yeah, so we only allow so many people per market. We usually do 2, sometimes 3 per market. So if you want to see if your market's available and apply to see if it'd be good for you, go to 10xtv.co, not .com, but 10xtv.co. What we'll do is we'll pull up a map. We'll show you where your commercials reach, kind of give you an idea what the ad spend's going to be. A lot of the markets we probably already run TV or have some kind of data, so we'll be able to kind of give you specifics. So yeah, if you're interested, reach out to us. No pressure, and love to see what we can do for you.
Well, I'll make sure that I pop those links into the show notes here as well. Also, in smartphone, we've got 2,500 plus real estate investment companies that use us on a daily basis, and these are the sorts of companies like yours are what we like to feature to our customers and say, hey guys, have you looked at this value added? So definitely something I'll pop into smartphone as well, because I just think this inbound is gold. Well, listen, Tony, absolute pleasure to meet you. You and I hadn't had a chance to talk before. I appreciate you coming on, and I just think what you're doing is so exciting. And I also love the backstory. I love the way you started. I love the idea of the big box of tapes. That only a certain generation of people and above will understand. And I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for listening to another amazing episode of That Real Estate Tech Guy. Head over to thatrealestatetechguy.com to check out all episodes and get special discounts on tons of awesome real estate technology platforms.